Hi, I'm Jeff Murrah, and I want to welcome you to True Texas History. Today, I'm going to be talking about Governor Joseph Sayers in an ungrateful city. The ungrateful city is none other than Bastrop. Apparently, Bastrop does not give a rip about Governor Sayers and his accomplishments. As part of their purging of history over there in Caldwell County, they have decided to remove the monuments to the everyday Confederate soldiers around the courthouse and the monument to Governor Joseph Sayers. Never mind, you've got a governor that lived in your town and you've got the Joseph Sayers house. They don't care. There's a plaque there. I'm going to go ahead and read the plaque so that you can know what it says. It's a pink granite memorial. It says, born in Mississippi, came to Texas in 1851 and enlisted here as a private. 1861, adjutant, 5th Texas Cavalry, Arizona, New Mexico campaign to make the Confederacy an ocean-to-ocean nation. At age 20, made captain for gallantry at the Battle of Val Verde, organized the Val Verde Battery from cannons captured there, commanded the battery in the Red River Campaign in 1863 to prevent the capture of the Mississippi, promoted to major after Camp Brisland, Louisiana battle in which he was wounded, returned on crutches as chief of staff to General Tom Green, serving in the Red River Campaign to prevent the invasion of Texas, wounded at the Battle of Mansfield, returning to service as soon as he could ride a horse. After Green's death, he was placed on the staff of Richard Taylor, participating in 1865 Alabama actions. This was the last command to surrender east of the Mississippi. Reached Bastrop on crutches. State Senator in 1873, Lieutenant Governor in 1879 to 1880, Congressman 1884 to 1898, helped to secure long overdue payment for Texas Ranger service on the frontier. Texas Governor 1899 to 1903, worked to expand agriculture, industry, tenure marked by the Spindletop Gusher, the start of modern petroleum industry in Texas, and the disasters of the Huntsville State Prison burning, 1899 widespread Brazos River flood, and the Great Galveston Storm of 1900. Okay, and then it tells you where he's buried. Now, Governor Sayers, as a governor, can you imagine having some major floods, the 1900 storm, the state penitentiary burned down? Those are all major events. And for one governor to preside over it, in fact, he presided over some of those early disasters, and the people liked his response so much they elected him again. This was, he got aid to the people and got them taken care of. Now, over in Caldwell County, the county judge thinks that what I just read to you is talking about the expansion of slavery. It did talk about expanding the Confederacy, and that was some of the vision with the ones that went out there to the Arizona, New Mexico area. Now, I've got to put this thing in context for you. Keep in mind, after the Mexican War, after we defeated Mexico, we got this huge swath of land in the Southwest. Now, the catch is, if you were from a slave state, you weren't allowed to settle there. A little bit of discrimination there. And so, the people in the South, they had some burrs under their saddle with how they couldn't settle in that area. And in fact, if you check the papers of Sam Houston had a vision of Texas going from coast to coast. So this vision is not new or unique. For the Confederacy. Now, the Confederacy was a joining of states together. It was not a united force. In all likelihood, if there was an extension of things to the sea, who's going to stand to benefit? Texas. Now, also, most people have never read the causes of secession. And one of the things that Joseph Sayers did when he was governor, keep in mind, he was governor near the turn of the century. He finally got the U.S. to pay for border protection that they promised when we came into the Union. Gee, we came in 1845, so I mean, you're dealing with, let's see, 45 to 55, 55 to 65, 65 to 75, 75 to 85. Literally 55 years of border protection that the U.S. chose not to pay, and his administration made him pay for it. I mean, they wanted to make sure that they held to the deal. For anybody to walk from Louisiana to Bastrop, Texas on crutches takes dedication. Could the county judge of Caldwell County do that himself? I doubt it. Now, another thing that's interesting, and I may have to talk about it in a future one, when Joseph Sayers did run for governor, I don't know what you would call it, campaign manager, the wonk in chief, the person who gives him advice, most of these people have them. In the Democratic Party, there's James Carville, and they have a few Republican hacks that are your political experts. At that time, he hired the premier political expert, who was a Texas boy, by the way, a fellow by the name of Colonel House. Colonel House, where have I heard that before? Colonel House was also instrumental in getting several other governors elected, and then he moved up to president and was a major player in getting Wilson elected. He was also very involved in the creation of the Federal Reserve, passing income tax, and other major measures. Colonel House was a big mover and shaker. He was a big deal. But Bastrop doesn't care. Bastrop just looks at images and they're falling for the emotional pleas. They don't care about the facts. They don't care about history. I mean, Sayers' house is still in Bastrop. Any governor who has accomplishments like that in the midst of hardships like that, I've got to admire. Now, the Battle of Fort Brisland, not many people know about it. It was a pretty good sized fort, and it was mainly Texas troops in there. They were surrounded. They essentially, most of the troops kind of snuck out the back door when they had an opportunity. They had a skeleton crew in there that held out against several assaults from the invading Union forces. In stopping the invasion of Texas, yes, that was a big deal. Because, you had Union troops that had the wagons loaded up. Well, they weren't loaded up, they were empty, and they were wanting to load up with stuff in Texas. They were planning on pillaging and burning. They weren't here for a social call. There was, some nasty medical experiments going on in Louisiana at the time, and they stopped those things from making their way to Texas. Because, there were some people that were going around doing some weird things, spreading smallpox and calling it a vaccine. It was strange stuff. I may have to talk about that story sometime, but the Brisland and the Red River campaign stopped that from reaching Texas, and that's a notable accomplishment itself. Now, if you've ever heard the story of the Valverde battery, how they captured those cannons, that's amazing too. And Joseph Sayers was a major player. And think about it, for someone to go from being a private to being a major and being promoted like that, people saw potential in him. I wanted to go ahead and talk about Joseph Sayers because If you live in Bastrop County, they don't care, and they're not going to talk about him. They're not going to talk about anything, any of those major contributions made by the men who volunteered for service in Bastrop County. Keep in mind, in terms of the causes of the war, that the U.S. had not paid for any border protection. They weren't protecting Texans from the Indians or the Mexicans or the other attacks coming in, and there were many other travesties that happened. Lincoln issued a call for troops. I mean, think about that today. If President Trump issued a call for thousands of troops to go in and invade fellow states and put them down, people would be a little upset. And this is all part of it, so I may have to spend a session going over that. But I wanted to go ahead and make you aware of this, and until next time, I wish you well. Vaya con Dios, my friends. Goodbye.